How did the so-called international community respond to the Rwandan genocide in 1994 as the Hutu exterminated 1 million Tutsi in just 100 days? The United Nations actually had a peacekeeping mission on the ground from October 1993. The peacekeepers were meant to implement the peace agreement signed at the end of the Civil War, which I discussed in the last video. Months before the genocide began, a high-level Hutu informant told the UN peacekeeping mission of the plan to exterminate the Tutsi. He told them where the weapons were. The head of the peacekeeping mission in Rwanda, Romeo Dallaire, asked the UN if he could seize the weapons. They said no. It would exceed the mandate. Surely this is one of the worst decisions ever made. In a cruel twist, just before the Rwandan genocide began, the UN Security Council held a meeting to discuss the future of the peacekeeping mission, but the Rwandan government was one of the elected members of the Security Council and therefore had a front row view to hear that the Security Council was indifferent. Just days later, on April the 7th, Hutu extremists killed 10 Belgian peacekeepers. The Belgians wanted to withdraw the rest of their peacekeeping force immediately. On April the 10th, Romeo Dallaire submitted a report stating that with just 5,000 peacekeepers, he thought he could stop the mass killing. But his report was never shown to the Security Council. On April the 21st, 1994, the United Nations Security Council met again to discuss the situation. They decided to scale down the peacekeeping mission to just 270 peacekeepers. This was despite the fact that Human Rights Watch had written a letter to the Security Council explaining that over 100,000 had been killed in just 2 weeks before the meeting. Michael Barney is an academic who was present at the time and says there were 3 factors shaping the decision-making process. First, there was a real lack of leadership within the UN itself. Second, states just didn't want to commit their own troops, especially after the debacle in Somalia the year before. And third, they were trying to protect the lives of the UN peacekeepers and the credibility of the United Nations itself. As explained in my own book, this was a grave mistake as the Rwandan genocide eroded the moral authority of the United Nations to the point that it could be legitimately challenged over Kosovo and Iraq. It was not until June 8, 1994 that the Council agreed to authorise 5,500 peacekeepers, but these wouldn't even be deployed for months. It was at this point the French intervened, but its motives and its actions have been scrutinised ever since. And this leads us on to the next video when we will look at the UK, the US and France's role in all of this. Overall, the gross failure of the Security Council at the time has led critics to claim that it was not just a bystander, but it was complicit in the murder of over 1 million Tutsi.